Hi, I'm Steve G. Jones, clinical hypnotherapist, and I want to tell you a little bit about myself before we get started. I have a bachelor's degree in psychology from the University of Florida, a master's degree in education from Armstrong Atlantic State University, and a doctorate in education from Georgia Southern University. I'm a certified clinical hypnotherapist, a member of both the American Board of Hypnotherapy and the National Guild of Hypnotists, and I'm president of the American Alliance of Hypnotists. I'm the director of the Steve G. Jones School of Clinical Hypnotherapy. I also serve on the board of directors of the American Lung Association in Los Angeles. I have over 2 decades of experience in hypnotherapy, and I still maintain a busy practice and teaching schedule because I see clients and teach classes worldwide. My client base consists mainly of people who want to lose weight, stop smoking, or gain confidence. Other clients include sales teams interested in boosting motivation and increasing income. Palmistry is a topic that has fascinated me for many years. I remember when I was first in college at the University of Florida in Gainesville, Florida. There I was, sent away to college, and I was studying all of my normal subjects for my psychology degree. However, my main interest was in the metaphysical, palmistry, numerology, astrology, and so forth. So I remember being in the library, studying math and biology and psychology, finishing that up, and then grabbing something that I was really interested in, which was a book on palmistry. I remember reading a book on palmistry. This is over 20 years ago, reading a book on palmistry in the library daily and really getting into it, and then getting another book on palmistry. Palmistry fascinated me, and the reason was it was just so simple. Palmistry is something that anyone can pick up, and it's something that you can do within just a few minutes. It's not like reading auras, which could take a lot of time and practice. It's not like raising your kundalini, which could take patience and practice. It's not like clearing your chakras, which could take patience, skill, and training, and trial and error, and so forth. It's something that you can do right now. You can just look at someone's palm and say, okay, that's the heart line, the headline, the lifeline. Here's what's going on with you. I can see that, and you can show them. You see, when you read someone's aura, you can tell them what's going on with them, but it's really difficult to show them what you are seeing. When you talk about astrology even, and you tell someone, okay, you're a Taurus, so you're very interested in business, you're very bullheaded sometimes, you've got all these attributes, but it's difficult sometimes to point to something that says that. You could point to words in a book, but with palmistry, you can point to their hand and show them on their hand. Here is a line, and this is what the line means. And by the way, I didn't make up this line. This line is on your hand. I'm just interpreting it for you. So how fascinating is that? How fascinating is palmistry? Palmistry is something that's completely portable. You can do anytime, anywhere, and you can learn it so quickly. So let's jump right in and get you up and running in palmistry. Let's start with the very basics. Let's talk with the major and minor hand. The major hand is the one that we most often use. So if we're right-handed, for example, that would be our major hand. And the other hand would be our minor hand, the one we don't use as often. So the major hand is what you're doing with your skills, talents, and so forth, what you're doing with what you were born with. That's your major hand. So if you're right-handed, your major hand is what you're doing with your skills and so forth. Your minor hand, which if you're right-handed would be your left hand, your minor hand is your potential. So on the one hand, pardon the pun, you have your potential. That would be your minor hand. If you're right-handed, that would be your left hand. That's what you could be. That's what you could amount to. That's your minor hand. Your major hand, which if you're right-handed is your right hand, is what you are. And you might think offhand, pardon the pun again, that that's extremely boring. Everything's set. So what you're going to be is set. It's written on your hand. And what you could be is set. It's written on your hand. How boring. Where's the possibility of change? Where's the use in understanding palmistry? If everything is set and there's nothing you can do about it, what's the use even learning about it? Well, your hands can change over time. Your face changes over time. Your body changes over time. Your hands also change over time to reveal what's going on with you. Now, here's something fascinating about palmistry. Even your minor hand can change. And you might think, now how is that possible? If it's what I was born with, if it's the potential that I had at birth, how could that change? How could what I was born with at birth ever change? Well, it's not necessarily limited to what you were born with at birth. It is your potential. It is what you can do. Sometimes as you rise to higher and higher levels in life, what you can do, your true potential also rises, also changes. And this can go both ways. You can limit your potential, or you can increase your potential, or you can simply change your potential. Not all moves, not all changes are better changes or worse changes. Some changes are simply changes. So how about thinking about it this way? Your major hand, which if you're right-handed is your right hand, and if you're left-handed is your left hand. Your major hand is what you're actually doing right now with your life. Your minor hand is what you're planning. Your minor hand reveals the information that's in the back of your mind. You know those ideas. I could do this. I could do this better. I could do this differently. Or I could have a family. Or I could have a different career. That's your minor hand. Your minor hand will show you those things that you are thinking about in the back of your mind. And as they push forward and happen in your life, we're going to see them on your major hand. Now, if you're meeting someone out and about and you're at a party or some kind of social event and they just ask you to give a palm reading quickly, because by the way, once you understand palmistry and how to do palm readings, everyone's hand is going to be in your face. They're all going to say, read me, read me, read me, read me next. So if you find yourself in that situation, which all it takes is to say, I read palms, and everybody wants to know about themselves, what I suggest is that you read their major hand. Just ask them which hand they write with. If they say both, then ask them which hand they favor, which hand they use more. If they say either one, then just pick one. But in most cases, people can easily identify their major hand. By the way, here's a great opportunity for a vocabulary lesson. Perhaps you're familiar with the term ambidextrous. That means using both hands equally. But have you heard the word ambisinister? That means using neither hand very well. You may have opportunity to use that word. If they say, well, I don't favor either hand, then you can say, well, you're ambisinister. And if they say they're not sinister, then you can explain what that word means. Because what you're going to find is that when you read palms, it lends itself to a party situation. It lends itself to fun social interactions. Not all of your palm readings will be in front of a crystal ball in a quiet room with some incense burning in the background. Many of them will be out at clubs or at parties or at some sort of social event. So having some interesting and fun and sometimes funny things to say can really go a long way, because you, like it or not, are going to become a celebrity the moment you, in any situation, announce that you know how to read palms. Let's talk about the texture of someone's skin. That's one of the first things that I want you to notice. And by the way, palmistry is all about noticing things about the palm. But as you're going to see, it extends a little bit past the palm, as in the case of skin texture. I want you to keep it simple as possible when you evaluate every part of the palm and the hand in general. So skin texture is no exception. Don't get caught up in various types of skin and so forth. Just notice, is it soft or is it not soft? Keep in mind that soft skin equals soft person, meaning gentle and warm and kind and so forth. Not so soft skin, meaning coarse skin, and some skin is even so coarse that it's like sandpaper. Coarser skin means that the person's more abrupt. They're straightforward. They're also very grounded. So a person with soft skin is going to be a sensitive, kind, gentle soul. A person with coarser skin is going to be more abrupt. So it's a spectrum with sensitivity on one end, on the extreme end, and coarseness on the other extreme end, and all sorts of variations in the middle. You can determine, based on the coarseness or softness of their skin, how sensitive or abrupt they are. Now keep in mind, when I say abrupt, that's not necessarily a negative person. Coarser skin means that they are more abrupt, but it also means they're more grounded. They just say what they feel. Sure, they seem to be not concerned with other people's feelings, but they don't harbor a lot of internal anxiety. They don't worry about things. They just say what's on their minds. They are very down-to-earth people. This alleviates a lot of stress that people with silky skin have to deal with. People with silky skin are too sensitive to really tell exactly what they're feeling. So they have a lot of internal anxiety, things they keep pent up. So realize that it's not always that cut and dry. It's not always very silky, soft skin or very coarse skin. It's usually something in between. And as you talk to someone while giving them a palm reading, tell them what you're thinking. Well, your skin is not very soft, but it's not extremely coarse, but it's closer to being coarse than it is to being soft. And that's why I know that you are more of a down-to-earth person, more of a straight shooter, more of an abrupt person. In fact, sometimes you may say things that hurt people's feelings and you don't realize it because you're just telling them what they need to hear. And they'll probably look at you and say, yes, you're right. Get used to hearing that. Get used to people nodding their heads and saying, yes, you're right. You know, there's a fascinating story I heard about Mark Twain. He went to a famous palmist, famous palm reader in his time. And before that, Mark Twain was quite the skeptic. He didn't believe in palmistry. He didn't believe that you could look at someone's palms and tell them anything. But after having a palm reading, he made a statement to the effect of, this person just read everything about me in my palm. Mark Twain was made a believer, and you are going to make believers out of a lot of people because what you're going to reveal to them is truth. And if anyone ever says, no, that's not me, that's not right, just show them where you got the information so they know you're not just making it up. And don't make things up, by the way. Don't add things that aren't there. Everything you say should be backed up by an observation. So if you say they're very abrupt and down to earth, you can show them. Feel your own skin. You can feel it. Here's where I got the information. Something else you can do, and you can even do this before you look at their palms, is shake their hand. If they want a palm reading, shake their hand. You can tell a lot about a person by the grip that they offer you in a handshake. Now, some people have been trained to give a firm handshake. So sometimes all we can tell is that they've been trained to give a firm handshake. This is usually obvious because they'll have a very businesslike demeanor about them and everything will be just right and they'll give a firm handshake and you can tell that they've trained themselves or somebody told them or somebody trained them to give a firm handshake. So sometimes we have to take the firmness or lack of firmness of the handshake with a grain of salt. You're going to have to develop your own discretion concerning this. But generally speaking, with a limp handshake, you know you're dealing with someone who is not exactly a strong character, someone who doesn't have a lot of backbone. Now, of course, you don't want to say this to them. You don't want to phrase it in that way. But you need to find a very gentle and polite way to say things. By the way, people do not like hearing bad things about themselves. If you have something really negative to say, find a positive way to say it. So, for example, rather than saying, you lack backbone, you could say, you seem to be more of a gentle type rather than an overly assertive type. Let's talk about the sponginess of the hand. I want you to take your own hand and turn it right side up. Either one, just look at it. And with your other hand, doesn't matter which one, press on your hand. So one hand you have right side up, your palm is facing up. With the other hand, you're pressing on it. Just pressing around, pressing under the thumb, pressing under the fingers. Is it spongy or is it firm? If it's spongy, then you're the type of person, and don't take this the wrong way, who enjoys the sensual pleasures of life, who would rather avoid work if possible, at least physical work. You're more of a relaxed person, into enjoying life's pleasures. Notice I did not call you lazy. If, on the other hand, your hand is more firm, then you are less about life's pleasures and more about getting work done, getting down to it. You see, when you have something positive to say, you can say it very easily. When you have something that might kind of sound negative, you need to work on crafting your words. By the way, there's nothing wrong with having spongy hands. These people really know how to enjoy life, so if you are one of them, keep on enjoying. There's nothing wrong with getting the most out of life and really getting into life's pleasures. There's a free lesson on putting a positive spin on something. Let's talk about flexibility. How flexible is the hand? Go ahead and bend back your fingers now. Go ahead and bend back each finger, bend back your thumb. Flexible are you? Well, after you've examined a few hands, you're going to know the different levels of flexibility. Perhaps you're bending back your hand right now and thinking, well, I don't know how flexible I am compared to other people. Seems like I'm pretty flexible. Once you do a few palm readings, you're going to have an idea of what average flexibility is and what extreme flexibility is and what lack of flexibility is. Some people's fingers won't budge. Some people's fingers, it seems like you could bend them all the way around twice and they wouldn't feel it. How flexible you are can be shown in your fingers and your thumb. How flexible is everything? That's how flexible you are as an individual. How open are you to change? How spontaneous are you? Let's talk about hand shape. Not handshake, hand shape. What shape is the hand in? And you may think, well, what shapes are there? Well, I'm going to tell you there's the square palm and there's the oblong palm. If you look at someone's palm and just ignore the fingers and the thumb for a moment, look at your own palm. Not looking at the fingers or the thumb, just the palm area. Look at all the borders of the palm. Where it meets the fingers, where it meets the thumb, where it meets the wrist. All the sides. Does it look like a square to you? Does it look like a square to you, equal on all sides? If so, you are a practical person. You're down to earth. You're prepared to work long and hard if the situation demands it. So even if you have a spongy palm, you can still work long and hard if the situation demands it. People with a square palm usually have an abundance of energy. Let's talk about the oblong palm, also known as the artist's palm. Oblong palms are sort of long and thin. So the distance from the wrist to the base of the fingers will be greater than the distance from side to side. It's an oblong palm. Not very practical. This is the artist. This is the dreamer. These are the idea generators of the world, the daydreamers. But because of the lack of squareness of the palm, a lot of times those daydreams don't become reality. They just remain thoughts. So think about an artist, the ideal artist, creative, gentle, and a dreamer. All right, let's take a little break now. We're about halfway through the material that I've presented, and I want to make sure that you're with me, that you're paying attention and that you're learning something. So what I want you to do right now is, if you're driving and you can pull over, go ahead and do that. If you're not driving, then you can definitely do this. You can take out a piece of paper and you can write down 5 things that you've learned so far from what I've said. 5 things that resonated with you. Now, I want you to keep in mind, they don't even have to be 5 things that I said. Maybe you got some good ideas from what I said. Maybe I said something and your brain took it and blew it up a million times and came up with all kinds of wonderful, amazing possibilities based on what I said. If that's the case, then feel free to write that down. I just want you to write down 5 things, whether they came from me or they're just thoughts that came in your head. 5 things that have come to you so far, either from me saying them or from you thinking them, as a result of listening to this program so far. So as I'm silent, I'm going to give you ample time now. I want you to write down 5 things, 5 thoughts that you have as a result of listening to this program so far. Do this now.